Greetings, I am Hallelujah, and today we are going to go over some of the, for the sake of this course, we're going to call it the simple wire wrapping methods. Now, I would like to start with a caveat that, I think I start a bit ahead of what is considered simple, and that's because there's like two reasons, I'm gonna guess, for wire wrapping. One of those reasons is that people would like to, I lost something. People want to just show off a rock that they got, which is cool. But then oftentimes they don't spend a lot of energy on what it is they make. They simply have their rock and they wrap some wire around it and it's pretty and they're happy with that. And, you know, if that's cool with you, awesome. If you want to step it up a notch and get into the art of what you can do with wire, that's what I want to teach you. Now that said, there are methods to show off as much of that rock as possible. I am covering very little of that tourmaline because that tourmaline is gigantor, and I want to show off every bit of its beautiful, just long and thick, beautiful green shininess, because it's amazing. And that applies even to like these little London blue topaz, which I just had a thought of. Give me 1 second. It's all fun and games until you realize you're the guy who's got to edit. Excuse my language. So yeah, this is, I wanted to set up some better lighting. But yeah, if you want to show off rocks, and like you'll notice this curve here, behind it is mostly hollow. There's a little bit. I tried to cover up as little of the mold divide as possible. But that's neither here nor now, because we're not there yet. So, let's start with the basics. I'm wondering. Sorry, give me one. So, here we are. We have some rocks and glass cabs. I've got some wire. We can get more wire. Wire for days. And, some simple pliers. We got this. I've got flat nose. I've got my cutters. I have a pair of nylons. And, somewhere around here, I have these bent nose. My more complex pair of pliers is floating around here somewhere. There it is. I will avoid doing anything that I need to use those on with this wrap. Or these wraps if I can, especially starting out. I want to start out with some basic, easy, yeah. So, let's start with a drop pendant. And in this, I'm going to go over, like, I'm going to make a bunch of these pendants, and each and every one of these pendants is going to be more complex and get just more and more interesting. And we're gonna, like, because you start simple and then you learn from that, and then you move up and you learn from that, and then you move up and you learn from that. So right here I am using 20 gauge square. You can use 18 gauge square I don't know if I'd recommend going less than 20, but you can. I mean, there's no law out there that says you can, what gauge you gotta use for what wrap. I have done these wraps with some tiny wire before. And I'm going to take my pliers, or my nylon pliers, and I'm going to run each one of these strands through my nylon pliers. Now this is not to get them quote-unquote straight, it's to work out all of the bugs in them. Wire will have these little bends and just irregularities. It'll also twist on you, especially when you buy it like from, say, Parawire or a craft store. Their square wire is going to come in a little spool like I showed you, or not a spool but a roll like this. They won't normally send it on these. And for learning this, I highly recommend starting out with copper. That can be a little more expensive than it sounds, I get it. I am going to start with square and half round. However, screw it. We will find a way to do one of these wraps using round wires. Because not everybody can find, like, I know if you start out like I did on the local craft stores like Joann's and Michael's, they didn't carry square. So, after doing that, I'm going to put all these together. I'm going to run them through my fingers together and get them into a straight line so they're going to match up with each other. I'll need to do that again, but I just kind of want to get them a little more prepared. They'll oftentimes work with each other a little better that way. Now I'm going to take this 20 gauge half round that I have, and we're going to work out a small amount. I am kind of like interested in the theory of what if you only have square, but I'll probably do a special on that at some point. For the fundamentals, I just kind of want to go over the fundamentals. So, the reason I prefer square and half round for cage wraps is square, things catch on to a lot easier and hold on to better. That makes it superior in a lot of ways. Meow meow, what do you want? I see you down there, buddy. Not superior. It makes it superior for some things. So, once again, we're going to get these put together, and we're going to take our piece of half round, we're going to lay it right on top, right in the middle, which I am bad about, so as middle as you can get it. And you're going to fold over. Then you're going to take your pliers and you're going to make it so that fold is nice and crisp. Then we're going to fold it over again. And we'll finish each one of these with the pliers. You can use nylons if you have them. Another reason I like using copper and other bare metals is so if I decide to polish a piece, I can, and I can remove any tool marks that will inevitably be put into a piece. Finish polishing a piece can do amazing things to it. Now I'm gonna go the other direction, and I'm just gonna get this stuff folding. Paying attention to the size of my stone, which for this one is just gonna be this. Meow Ball, where did you go? I don't trust that cat sometimes. Now, I have chosen this super long wire to be my backside. I'm gonna fold those two wires up like that. Hey, meow, meow. And then I'm gonna fold this one more time through, back up on each side. And then I'm going to take the ends of each half round, I'm going to wrap them around the base of that. Now, something you may have noticed, you may not have noticed, don't worry if you're new, I wouldn't have noticed it myself. This frame is not bent the way it needs to be. We're going to now bend these to go perpendicular with the other wires. I should have said, I used 5 wires total. You can do this with 4 wires. Heck, I've done it with 3 at times. All depends what you're doing. Do a 6. I don't know how many I would go though. Like, I'm not sure on the high end of that. So I'm going to take our cab, I see how this is. Now, there's tricks out there to get the approximate shape and size. Oh, look at that. It's about the right size. Go figure. Huh. Well, that'll work perfectly for this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to set this here, and I'm going to roll these up. Now, something you can do at this point is you can take your two wires, cross them over, and mind you, you don't have to do this perfectly. I often do not do anywhere near perfect work. Now, when I crossed them over, they ended up facing like this. So if I brought them up and around, I'd have the flat side of the half round. Now, half round is round on one side and then flat on the other. It's really hard to display this in a 20 gauge wire. However, to give an example, this is a piece of sterling. I think it's like 10 gauge half round, and you can see how thin it is compared to how thick it is. One side is absolutely flat and the other side has a dome to it. I personally want the dome of my pieces on top. That's what I mean about it not being, sometimes not being the neatest, but I'm gonna do a fit test real quick. Still fitting decently well, especially down on the bottom. I'm gonna fit it a little bit more fitted. I'm also going to figure out where the exact top of this piece is going to be. But, for the moment, that isn't as big of a deal. What I'm gonna do is, while holding this in place, gonna wrap on each side once through. And then I'm gonna flatten it. And on this side, I'm gonna do the same thing. Except for it's not going to want to hold together as well. Also, I noticed the tops being the way they are slightly interfering, so I'm going to kind of bend them up. I missed on my evenness. Pop this out for a moment. Go to that point where it had folded. Get those in a straight line. Now I notice both sides of this are wrapping down, and I'm okay with that. That ain't a big deal. I do want to make sure I can still fit my cab in. I'm going to do the same thing kind of that I did on the bottom, where I'm going to slowly wrap around the edges. You know, I should have taken a fundamentals class myself. Worked with like somebody pro to help set me up a studio that'll work around my body being the way it is. I apologize, guys. My hip being deformed as it is makes this a very difficult thing to record, but I am very passionate about what I do, and I want to share that with people who love it and who may not know that they love it, but they may fall in love with it, which is why, like, we're with the beginner right now. And any questions, feel free to hit me up in a comment. Also, you can direct message me at celestialreach.etsy.com. There is a message function there. Do feel free at any time to shoot me a message. So after going around 4 on each side, I'm going to bend it back up, keeping it as flat as I can on the bottom. I probably should use the little bit longer piece. I'm gonna find a place to tuck the wire down and tie it out. This is also why I like these curved tipped pliers. They come in a lot of handy. But they're not the perfect tool for everything. So, once I get a good place to cut this off, making sure that it's, you never want these points coming backwards. You always want them folded flat against the stone, pointing into the wrap, whatever, just never pointing towards the wearer. So now we're gonna take and we're gonna shove our cab in there. Now, right now, what we're going to want to do is find a way to get in between this top one and the other 3. Now, there are a lot of ways to do this. Some people will use knives. If you're going to do that, use a very dull one. If I had a dull one around, I probably would do so myself. I don't, so what I do is I bring my flat pliers. and I get in on each side of this. Now, depending on how you're designing things, you only want to do this enough to hold the stone in. Take a piece of the 20 gauge half round again. And this piece is long. I'm just gonna do it off of the spool, as some people would call it. Pick my direction. I'm going to tie it in. Oh wow, that tells you how thin that is. I made a mistake there, my bad. That was my spool of 24 gauge half round, or square, 24 gauge square. It's not adequate for what I'm trying to do right now. So, I'm gonna put that back. I'm gonna reach up to my unlimited supply. I'm gonna pull a nice arm stretch of it. I'm going to attempt to make a cut. There we go. I got my cut. So, in simple essence, what I'm wanting to do right now is make my bail and pull all these together so everything's tight. So, I'm going to bend these each to one side. I'm going to take advantage of this being a little loose and add a little bit more up there. I don't know that it's absolutely necessary to. I'm going to straighten these back too to put them together. I'm going to wrap around twice, angle those two out slightly, and angle those slightly forward. And twist around it twice. So, now my only objective left is to get rid of these and get rid of, or make a bail and get rid of all the extra wires. Now what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to keep twisting around with even pressure, or like, so I'm pulling evenly on it as I twist.
The back and forth has got me so messed up. Don't ignore the signs. We've had enough of the whole damn thing that we got going. You hold those strings without me knowing. Why do I have to suffer through the thinking? Why do I have the feeling that I'm sinking? I need to.
I like to make sure there's enough of a bail for whatever may be. And then, once I'm certain of that, I come in and I leave it connected, but I go flatten everything.
What's all this for? It's got me turned around, but I can't ignore the feelings that I found in this whole damn thing that we got going. You hold those strings.
Gonna bend this forward, angle it up, angle it back, and then angle it back down. Now, there are a few different methods for getting this part out. One is you can just connect it down here somewhere. Another, and it's the one I'm going to use for this particular one, is I can wrap around once, back up here. By the way, I can cut off and should cut off the half round lead that I have, whatever you call that. Just landed near my cat. I hope it didn't wake him. He's gonna have all sorts of fun with that. Now from here, I have choices I can make with all these wires. But one of the keys, whatever it is you decide to do, is to keep them together so they can flow in, well, at least the way I go about things. I want them to have a natural-ish flow. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap these four up around to the back of this. I'm gonna cut them all even. It just makes them easier to work with. Plus a little shorter. I'm gonna wrap them once around the inside and the back of this. From the other side, can then tighten it. Cut it with just a little extra left. And fold them all right over and into the bale. These four, I'm going to kind of cross with this one. I'm going to cross it around to the back, where I'm going to find me something to tie on to. Tie on, tighten it down, and then do one more wrap under for security. And then I'm going to bring it, so here's the part. You want to get it, when you cut wires off, you want to get down in there as good as you can and cut them like right next to the stone. So there's no way those are going to catch on clothing or skin or anything like that. By doing that, that just tightens these down a bit, made them more susceptible to being worked with. I'm gonna take the back one now. Not quite in the same place, but where it's still being held down by this one. Make sure that these are still together. I'm gonna cross that in front of those two. This is where one of these little round tipped ones, pliers, come in handy. Do a single twist like that, where you just grab it and twist it around itself. Grab it flat and turn up, and it'll give you these great little curls like that. I'm gonna cut these where one is slightly longer than the other, but not by much. I'm gonna do the same thing with those. Where I twist it, and bring it in a circle. One of them I'm going to do in one direction, the other I'm going to do in the other. That gives me that. Now I just have these two here. Now what I'm gonna do with those, I'm gonna cross over like that. Take both of them, and I'm holding them both tight to each other. Put my finger down, so I'm holding it in one spot to that. And I'm just gonna torque it around itself, using the pressure. That's a pretty good place to just get rid of it now. And that's where I'm gonna pull both of them back. I'm gonna tie one up here and one down here that'll help hold the cab in better that way. And each time I'm going to bring it in so it comes in and then out underneath the wire. And that's because I am going to want to cut these so it comes right out from underneath the wire right next to the cab, and then I cut it as flush with the wire as I possibly can, so it's got a lip of wire that's already there and protecting the wearer. Oh, editing this is gonna be such a pain. Bright side, for the next styles, broke my own rule there. For the next styles, you basically have the base concept down now, and I can skip a lot of this because it'll be the same. So moving to the next part, or the next one. This second method of cage wrap starts the same way as the previous. But once you get to this point where you have the bottom secured together, and then your perpendicular back, what you'll want to do is curve your wire, or twist your wire up. I have it on the spool because sterling silver. I'm doing this with 24 gauge square and 24 gauge half round, so it's basically what I just did but a lot smaller. And then I do want to say this exact same wrap works on bigger stones too. I'm going to get up here where they join together, and I'm going to make my bail first for this wrap. So, I judge, using the stone, where my bail needs to be exactly. And I do the same thing I did at the end of the last wrap, but instead for this one, I start it first. I do want to take a second to point out that there are a lot of other artists who do these cage-style wraps. And they do them very well. And I would recommend any one of them. Oksana Craft does amazing wraps. Yvonne Williams, who I want to take a moment to thank for that last cab that I got. That was one of hers. Totally worth getting her cabs. They are well done, they look beautiful, and they last. Then I cut off where I wrapped these together and joined them. So for this one, you want to spread out the 3 base wires that you have. And you want to start with the ones that are in the back closest to the, I'm going to call it a frame, and this. You start with the one on one side while holding this up, and you wrap it up and around. And then into the bottom part of the bale. And then you go to the other side, the closest back one, and you basically do the same thing. Wrap it around one time, and then wrap it at the base of your bale. Securely. And then you switch to this one, which is on the opposite side again, and it's the next closest one that's not wrapped. And oftentimes when you're doing this, it'll change from piece to piece, but you're just gonna find the most secure way you can tie these off onto the back. And now we just do the last one, or well, last two, but same thing. where I find a spot to wrap them in and secure them down. And from here, we have a wrap. No more needs to be done to this. I can just cut these wires and it's good. But I figured since we're at this point, I could add in a little something and get to the next, get one part ready. So I tied in a thin piece of wire. Now for this wrap, it's 32 gauge, but for other wraps, it could be any gauge you want it to be. I'm trying to get this thing to stay focused, but it is not wanting to. I'm gonna wrap around the bottom a couple times, 5, and then I'm gonna wrap around both. Before I go on doing that though, I'm gonna take a moment to not so much flatten, but get these so they're running like with each other. There we go. Now I'm gonna wrap the two around, or this around twice, and then I'm gonna go back to wrapping around this wire. I'll do that 5 times. 2, 3, 4, 5. You will often hear this referred to as this one here is a 5-2. Where your first number is how many is going on the base, and your second number is how many is going around both or all. There are a bunch of different types of detail wrapping. This is one of the first ones you should learn. You can do this as a 2-2, a 4-2, a 4-3, a 5-3, a 2-3, or a 3-2. It doesn't matter. Like, just adding that pattern in there will give it a type of detail. Alright, so I've done that pattern a bit. I'm gonna cut off this piece of detail wire and lose it. Oh well. What I'm gonna do is I'm going kind of like the last one. I'm going to wrap this so that it forms a bit of a circle. Let it wrap around twice on the top of the bale. Now there is why you cut them even, because I didn't, and I should have. Then, now that I have it like this, I'm going to cut it right off. And there we go. We have a tiny little moonstone pendant wrapped in sterling silver. Isn't that cute? Alright, and so for our last one that we're going to do here today, of course my cords and all that are going to disagree with me the whole way. We've gotten to this part, just doing the normal fitting that I would do. And what I'm going to do on the back of this is I'm going to cross these and I'm going to want them to be a little higher up, because this one's only going to have the two on the bottom. I was probably out of frame the entire time there. That's okay. It's only going to have the two raised sections that hold the stone in at the very bottom of the pendant. So I've got each side set up in it. I'm going to get this in there. I'm going to try to make it somewhat even on both sides. But that doesn't always... Like, I gotta admit, the wire does not always play the exact game that I'm wanting to play. Sorry about that. I might have to do a little bit of polishing on this one. It's okay, it happens. And so from here, what I'll do is, like the others, angle up at the top and get it so it's formed, although that might take a little bit more work than I'd planned. And then I want to form the bail from there. So when we get to this part of wrapping, I've left the tails of the half round on. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this in a full circle around As wires wish to depart from this, I allow them. I'm going to fold this one up and over its buddies that it came with, and it's gonna wrap up like this, giving me 3 over here, these 2 here, these 2 here, and these 3 up here. And upon further thought of this piece, I now feel confident that I can take off these. I don't specifically need these, I'm just using them. Alright, so next we're going to grab some 28 gauge round wire, which is detail wire. And this might be 30 gauge. It feels like it. It's okay. So 30 gauge is going to leave a finer detail than 28 gauge. Same with like 28 gauge will leave a much finer detail than 26 gauge. I wouldn't do detail with anything less than 26 gauge. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to slip this into the middle of these, and I'm going to start wrapping around the middle wire. I want it to get a tight coil. Then it's going to pop up and it's going to wrap around that top one twice. And then I'm going to do 5 more. And it's going to wrap around that one twice. I want these to stay together. And stay tight. Oh, come on. It's wanting to argue with me. One trick for doing detail is to separate your wires like that. Make things easier. What I'm gonna do with this is well, it's gonna do its normal wrap down, but then I'm gonna have it sneak in between this wire somehow. That wire might be too thick. There we go. You just gotta find yourself an opening sometimes. There we go. Now I'm gonna wrap down again. I'm gonna do it one more time. There we go. Now that's going to attach these two wires coming around the side like that. They're going to help hold this one down. And I'm going to do it again. Okay, there we go. Boom. And so now that one's tied down too.